Here we go. I'm going to try to cover a lot of stuff in a real short time. So if I'm talking too fast or my accent, my hillbilly accent gets too much, you must stop me, okay? So it looks like this is working. I'm going to hit a lot of things about how to improve the way you write and the way you present stuff, okay? And some of these things I've already said when I was going over these reviews over here. So let's do this. This will make it easier on you and more memorable for the audience. And it's really important to make it easier for you. Don't ever discount the opportunity to make your job easier. Life is hard enough without putting on some show where we pretend we're not interested in things that make life easier. Anything we can do, especially in the difficult task of writing and presenting and pitching, anything we can do to make it easier for us is something that we want to do. So I'm going to talk about 6 things. So we have just a couple of minutes for each one. Let's see how far we get. First, I'm going to tell you the audience's secret, okay? Because they do have a secret. You're an audience tonight. You might not know what that secret is until I say it out loud. So I'm going to share that with you too. Next, I'm going to tell you about the power of content over style, okay? What you say matters far more than how you say it, all right? And by that, I mean your planning needs to go into the content and not into the song and dance. Number 3, I want to give you some quick tips about organization and prep. Number 4, I want to tell you about the power of colorful language besides profanity. Number 5, I want to talk a little bit about a memorable opening, but just some qualities of it, because I'm really going to sail through here, not give you a lot of details on some of these. And finally, I want to give you some tips about ways to relax before you speak. All right? So let's do it. By the way, I want you to notice here that there is something in the way I present that you should think about doing too. When I got started, I told you what we're going to talk about. Now you have a map. I'm not pitching you something. I'm not here to try to get you to buy something that I'm selling. I'm here to try to make you remember whatever it is that I have to say. And I know that listening is hard. Okay? Listening is hard. It's okay in here a little bit because you get to write things down. You take your phone out. If you're in a classroom, you can look at Facebook or whatever. But if you're in a room and somebody's giving a speech, this is what you're doing. You're sitting there like this. And you can sit there for about 10 minutes and then you're going. By the time you're getting to 20 minutes, you're like, okay, this should be done. And by the time you get to 21 minutes, if he doesn't shut up, I'm just going to leave. So what you got to do is accept that the people who are listening to you in many, many cases don't want to be there after a certain point. So you have to respect them. That means that you can't waste their time with a bunch of your own self-indulgent nonsense. You need to figure out as much as you can throw away as possible. Give them something good, send them home fast, send them home wanting more, and go away. A speech is the most inconvenient, uneconomical way to deliver information that has ever been devised. It is for inspiration, not for information. What I can read out loud takes 10 minutes. You could read it in 2 on a page. So be mindful of what it is that you have to deal with. The other point I want to make here, which is actually the point I started out to make and then got rambling, was that I've set out some things here that you actually want to know. I've created some mystery here, like with the audience's secret. Now that I raised it again, you're thinking, I really wonder what that's going to be, okay? By giving you this donut hole, this missing thing, I've got you interested at least a little bit in the next thing I want to say. You can't just inform, you got to be a song and dance man, okay? You got to entertain people to some extent or they don't remember. Here's the audience's secret. They want you to succeed. You really want my presentation to be good, don't you? You wanted every one of those pitches to go great. You didn't want anybody to get up there and go, and then go away and cry. I used to do stand-up, okay? And I'll tell you what, you go to a club, you ever go to a comedy club and see a comic? Have you ever watched anybody die on stage? Just totally get killed? I don't mean physically die. I mean, have you ever seen somebody just get killed on stage, not do well? Nobody's ever seen anybody? A little bit? How did that make you feel, my friend?
jealous, he was really stoned.
Oh, there's that.
Bad for the person.
Bad for the person.
Yeah.
You don't want to see anybody in front of you look like an idiot. Everybody in the room is like, oh Lord, please just let this be over. They want you to succeed. And so when you're up in front, don't allow yourself to be dragged down by this thought that, oh, it better be great. If everything isn't perfect, they're going to hate me. No, you have to be good enough. Just don't look like an idiot. That's not hard to do, it turns out. Just stand up there and say what you have to say. Practice, look at it. You're the one in charge. None of y'all are going to get up and walk past me to get out of here. And the longer, I can look at you for a few seconds. And if I'm talking about something else, the longer I do this, the more uncomfortable you get. I'm in charge, not you. And if you were up here, you're in charge. Take that. Use the hell out of that. Elevate content over style, okay? The key is organization. Whatever you're going to get up and say, you need to know what it is, all right? Now, if this is the way you are structuring a pitch, for instance, make sure that this is what you have. And let me tell you what, if you write a hook, write a hook. If you write a problem, write a problem. You write a solution, write a solution. Don't write a hook wrapped up in the problem that alludes to the solution and kind of promises an ask later, but then comes back to the hook. You ought to be able to write these things in silos, okay? That ought to be absolute. When you're done with the hook is done. When you're done with the problem done. By doing this, you make the memory of them stronger. If I talk to you about how good this program is, and then I take a wandering disquisition about my own education, you're not going to be focused on how good the program is. Talk about one thing, beat it into the ground, and then go to the next thing, but don't mix them. Organize that stuff. All right? Here's another thing. There is no such thing as voice. Now, I make my living partially as a speechwriter, and of course, partially from Amway. I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's Avon. No, I'm kidding. It's not. A lot of people who do what I do for a living, who sell speeches, who write speeches, custom documents, they come to somebody and they say, well, this is going to cost you a lot of money, but it's okay because I'm going to get up in your head. I'm going to learn how you sound, how you think, and how you talk. And the speech is going to sound just like your voice, okay? That's junk. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. You think that you're writing or that you're hearing something written for somebody. But in fact, in most of the cases, you're hearing something that is well organized. Now I'm going to cut out some names because we're taping here and this may end up on YouTube, but I had a client at one time who wanted me to write a speech, let's say, for this person. And I said, well, I'll be glad to do that. I went through a long list of clients that I had written for, people in entertainment, people in government, people in business, names that this individual would know. None of them impressed him or her. None of them at all. Until I mentioned the person who was at that moment a cabinet secretary, okay? And this person's eyes lighted up and they said, that person is my best friend in the world. That cabinet secretary is my best friend. You send me what you wrote for my friend the secretary and I'll tell you if you can write for me. Because if you can capture that person's voice, you can surely capture anyone's. So I went home, sent the piece in, got a call the next day from this individual, and you know what that person said? Said it was as if the secretary were in the room with me. Sounded just like the secretary. You got the job. Now, I'm going to tell you, when I wrote that thing, I had never met the secretary. I had never read a speech the secretary delivered. I wrote a speech I'd never read one of the speeches. I had seen the secretary on television a few times in news conferences and read a couple of editorials that that person had put their name to, and that was it. Now, how did I get the reaction of the secretary's best friend? Let me tell you. I wrote that thing without trying to copy somebody's style. I organized it well. And this person that wanted to hire me thought of the secretary as a brilliant speaker. What they really mean is a well-organized speaker. And when I gave them a well-organized piece of information, They read it and said, well, that's what the secretary sounds like. And I say to you, if I ask you, who do you think is a great communicator? Who's a great speaker? You tell me the name. I could give every one of you a copy of that speech that I wrote, and every one of you would say, yep, sounds just like her. Because it's not about the voice, it's about organization, structure, and content. So quit worrying about all those ornaments and filigree. Worry about sticking to the plan. All right? Everybody good? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right. That's a funny story. We'll skip it. Number 3, organize and prepare. All right? One of the things that you're going to have when you go out to speak in your hand is more than just your pitch. You're going to have a head full of details about how to get there, what they want, how long it's supposed to last, where you park, all this stuff. You shouldn't have to carry that around with you. You should write it down. It turns out for you to be able to perform with any kind of skill, you need to know everything that could possibly surprise you on the way. So instead of just writing a pitch, just rehearsing a pitch, you need to prepare a sheet of specifications, a sheet of details that eliminate the unknowns long before the event happens. You need to put the name of the person who's speaking, if it's not you, the date and the day of the week, where it's going to be, how to get there, how long are you going to speak, who goes up in front of you, who goes up behind. Are they serving coffee in the back while you're talking? That would be bad. Are you the last person before lunch? That would be bad too, because they really want you to sit down then. Are you the first person after lunch? That's bad too, because now they're loosening their belts, drinking coffee, and they're not interested in anything but a nap for the next hour. Are you working from a text that you've prepared word for word? Are you just working on your rehearsed business like that? Do you know anything about the audience? How old are they? How young are they? What do they want? Why are they there? Are they sitting in chairs like this? Are they sitting around tables? Have they been there all day? Did they drive in, fly in? Do they live here? Is the carpet comfortable? Is the room? What's it like? The more you know, as the old TV commercial goes, the more you know, the more comfortable you are standing in front of them. Do that. Do you have a personal connection to them? Well, for pitching, that really doesn't matter so much. So I'm not going to talk about that. And are there any people to acknowledge? The worst thing for a speaker, and this goes well beyond pitching, the worst thing for a speaker is getting there and realizing you have to acknowledge the VIPs and having no idea who the VIPs are. And so if the VIPs are going to be there, make sure long before you arrive, you've come up with a list, the appropriate titles that precede their name in the order in which they should be announced. All right? There are a couple of things you want to think about as well as all that. These are 2 statements that need to be at the top of that spec sheet as you write your document, as you write your pitch or your speech, and as you refine it. Number 1, what is it supposed to be about? Now you'd think that would be obvious. But I invite you to read, for instance, any op-ed in the newspaper, today, yesterday, tomorrow. About 2/3 of them will drag you around for about the first 300 words before they ever get to this. You need to be able to state in 4, 5, 6, 7 words max what you're talking about. In addition, you need to say what is it that you want the speech or the pitch to achieve. What do you want them to do? Not the takeaway. What do you want them to do? Now, in my case, I want you to be better informed. I want you to know how to write speeches better. That's my goal. The topic is a little different. The topic is, here are some tricks to write a better speech. Sometimes those things are very similar, like in mine. Sometimes they're pretty wide. I may be telling a metaphor. I might say, let me tell you a story about Baltimore's failure to build a stadium, how it bankrupted some company. But my goal is, let's not make the same mistakes when we do it, or let's not do it at all. Do you see the difference? The topic is one thing, what you want to achieve is something else. You've got to know both of those things. I've said this a couple of times tonight. Now I've written it in big letters for you. And I'm quite serious about this. There's a saying in politics, among the communications staffs, that once the staff is sick of hearing the stump speech, that means maybe 2% of the people who need to hear it have actually heard it. You have to speak it, speak it, speak it, speak it until you can do it in your sleep, because then and only then does it become musical. As I said to Chris early on, when you're playing an instrument, does anybody play an instrument? What do you play?
Guitar.
Guitar. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Have you played a long time?
Yes.
Okay. Well, maybe you remember as a kid learning those fingerings, how you'd be cognizant of how your fingertips will hurt, building up the calluses. You say, oh, how am I going to make a bar? I can't make the bar, And you're thinking when you play, and correct me at any point, when you're playing early on, it's all about where do I put my fingers. But once you learn to play, that just happens, and you think now about, you don't even think, you feel. I'm going to strum harder for emphasis, I'm going to pause a little longer. It becomes music and not just notes on a page, it becomes feeling. Speaking is the same way. It's not reading off a page, it's not saying what you memorize like a robot. It's knowing it with your heart and then speaking with your heart. Number 4, use colorful language. Description is fine. The things that you learn in grade school about how to be a colorful writer are even more useful. Here are some things you can do to make your pitches and your speeches more useful. Short words almost always beat long words. One adjective almost always beats 2 adjectives in front of a word or behind if it's a Romance language. Concrete words, all I mean there is a specific statement. It's better to say cherry red than it is to say reddish. Active voice means the subject is doing something instead of being acted upon. I walked the dog is better than the dog was walked by me. Or reports are available. Joe wrote a report. The Heritage Foundation released a report, not. Reports released last week offering things in lists, whether you do that in a slide or out loud, always useful to recap, not to anticipate, but to recap. Review frequently, nothing wrong with that. Don't worry about transitions. What I mean is, don't say, now that I have your attention, let me tell you the problem. Now that we've discussed, no. Da, 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 and they were hanging 30 feet off the ground in their car. The challenge we face. You see? You don't do anything except stop and go. You don't speed up or slow down. You stop or you go. There's only 2 gears in this car. Actually, that'd just be 1 gear, wouldn't it? Go and not go. Now, there are a lot of things you can do to make your language more interesting, and so I'll just hit some of these very quickly and briefly. I invite you to look these up. If you just look up the term literary devices on Google, it'll come up with everything I'm talking about, and you'll learn some of these things. Alliteration, consonants, and assonance. Alliteration is using the same sound at the beginning of a series of words. A big, bright, bold idea. That's alliteration. That's more memorable than saying, it was a great idea. Big, bright, bold. If we think more about poetry, we get some of this. Consonance is the repetition of consonant sounds. Assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds, the low, mellow tone. Oh. Those things are memorable. What's cool about it is people will hear you speak, and afterwards they'll say, I really liked that. And somebody will say, really, what did you like about it? They go, I don't know. I just liked it. This is part of why I like it. It's fun to hear sounds that are pleasing. This is a little before your time, so I'll put it in context, but in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and sort of died after that, there's a great fear, especially in the 1950s, that rock music would drive young people to do immoral things. And over, they would talk about, in fact, there's a famous speech, famous sermon, the beat is what he says. That's the danger, the beat. And there was actually something to what he was saying. Because we are affected by the way sounds play in the ear. You cannot hear that melody without this. And it goes and goes and goes and goes like that. The way sound plays with our heads is an emotional act. And that's the power of poetry, which is something most people who pitch and write speeches don't think much about, but you can. Ascendaton, polysyndeton. There's a difference between offering a list, or there are differences to be had in offering a list. If I say, let's see, if I say, you come home from work, and you say to your wife, how was your day? And she says, oh, I didn't do much. I just took care of the kids and went to the market and paid the bills and folded the clothes and drove the carpool. And, do you hear that? That emphasizes to the listener that I just did a shitload of things, okay? It emphasizes the number. She didn't say, I washed the clothes. Forgive the sexist thing, okay? I'm 50 years old. I washed the clothes. I took the dog for a walk. I prepared the dinner. She didn't do it like that, and then I did this. It was by emphasizing with and, which we do naturally. It emphasizes the volume of things, all right? Now, polysyndeton, or I'm sorry, that was polysyndeton. Ascendaton is omitting them, and that tends to emphasize the big ideas behind it. It's more of a political thing. I'll leave that for you to look up yourself. Repetition, whenever we say things more than once, saying things more than once, reminds the audience or suggests to the audience that these things are very, very important. You're going to write things that have to restate the same idea several times. When you do a pitch, you probably want to say what it is you want them to do, for instance. Don't find new ways to say it. Find a phrase that conveys your idea and then repeat the heck out of that phrase over and over. When President Obama ran for office in 2008, you may recall that he did not, at some stops, say, yes, we can, and at other stops say, of course, it's possible. And then at other ones say, indeed, this can be done. No, he said, yes, we can, yes, we can, yes, we can, yes, we can. When we repeat a phrase over and over, it's just like, it's drilled right down in. But we've all come out of this atmosphere of the education society where, we gotta be sophisticated. We can't say it twice the same way. We must put it in fresh terms. Well, we're writing commercially now, okay? We're writing for money. We're writing to persuade. We're writing to advocate. These are the tricks of advocacy, all right? Say the same thing over and over again in the same words. Anaphora, epistrophe, I'll leave that to you. A litany, a long thing. Imagery. When you describe things, in fact, let's do just a quick, we're standing on time. Okay, we're getting there. We'll be okay. I'll be done here in a few minutes. Don't worry. Look around the room. Everybody look around the room. In fact, just take in this room. I'll put it that way. Take in the room. Okay. Give me a quick, what's your impression of this room? Give me a little quick description of this room. You, how about you?
No pictures.
No pictures? What about you?
Bright.
Bright? Yep. Bright? Yep. Small. White. Cubed. Lots of chairs.
No.
Yeah.
White.
Yeah. Sterile. Yeah.
Cheers.
Okay. Everything that you all named, you know what it had in common? These are visual qualities. We've skipped 4 other senses.
It's cold.
It's cold. It's cold. Smells a little like late day cafeteria. When you describe something, blindfold yourself and give as many other descriptions as you possibly can. This will give you one more leg up over all the other writers, because this is all they write about, is all they see. It's the first thing, it's the most overwhelming sense we have, next to hearing. Forget even hearing. Tell them how it sounds. What do you hear?
Quiet hum.
Quiet hum.
projector?
There's a lot of sounds here. Those are the things that make us remember better, especially when we're trying to be persuaded of something. Reconsider the opening. A lot of ways to get that hook in. Suspense, humor, wordplay, surprise, human connection, history. Look at more than, I'm going to tell you a story that tugs at your heartstrings. Tell them everything except one fact. Has anyone seen the motion picture Inside Man by Spike Lee? You seen that? Remember how it opens? There's the actor, I can't think of his name. You would know who it is. Caitlin. Anyway, he's looking into the camera. He's on that show, The Nick. What's The Nick? The doctor? Clive Owen. That's it. Thank you. Clive Owen is looking into the camera, and the music's very ominous behind it. And this only lasts about 70 seconds. And he goes, my name is John Smith. He said, I have just robbed a bank. That's the one. All right, I'm John Smith. That's the who. I just robbed a bank. That's the one. I am located in this small cell and have been for the last 2 weeks. That's the where. And he goes on and on and on. And he said, at the end, after all this, he goes, and he never breaks eye contact. And he goes, and the why? And on that, as the barber tells us, on that hangs the table. And you watch for the next 2 hours, figure out what in the world, how can this man in a tiny cell possibly have pulled off one of the biggest bank robberies in history? And you're hooked because he told you everything except the key. That's a great way to open. It's a great way to open. And it doesn't require you to come up with some big honking mystery either. Just make a list of all the things you know and the one most important thing and just leave that out. These are tricks that I've learned from writing in a lot of different fields, like stage plays and screenplays and fiction. All these things that people say, well, I'm not even going to put it off on other people. I'm going to tell you from my own experience. If you want to be a good writer, don't be afraid to approach all different kinds of fields, but approach them in an educated and learned way. You can be, I'm a much better public relations writer because I write short stories and plays. I'm a better fiction writer because I've thought a great deal about how people interact from writing stage plays again. I'm better at this because of that, over and over again. Anything you want to write, you can be a better PR writer if you're a good poet. All these things have something to teach us. And the more you learn in these various fields, the better you are at every single one of them. And if you're the PR writer or the pitcher who knows a little bit about drama, think how many people pitch and know anything about drama. Not many. You're the one who now has that tool in your arsenal as well. That's why I hope many of the things I've said to you come as a big surprise. Because they're not the sort of standard thing you hear from people who talk about this. Finally, physical activity to relax. This is a picture of my great friend, Torian Hughes, one of the funniest comics of the 1990s. And when we were all doing stand-up back in Nashville, I remember one night he won a competition that was the key to his starting his career. And one of the keys, his talent was the big key. And TS, we called him TS, standing in the back of the room, and we were standing up. You know what a high top is, of course, in the bar? We're standing around a high top, and all the comics were standing back there. And this was a big, big high-stakes night for everybody in that room. We were all just starting out, didn't have anything going. And he's telling us some story about a comic book or something. And then the announcer goes, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our next competitor, T.S. Hughes, yay! And T.S. is leaning like this, talking to me, talking to my friends, and he goes, hang on, I'll be right back. And he just leaves the table, and he goes up there and pow, he just pounds it. And then he comes back right to the table, and he goes, so anyway. And I've always admired that because he made it look so easy, but I've also decided for my own purposes that tells you a lot about the negative value, if you will, of spending those few minutes before you go up, getting all worked up about it. If you know it, you know it. Don't sit there and rehash it for 10 minutes before you go up. It's going to make you nervous. Talk to your friends, work a Sudoku puzzle, play backgammon on your phone, do something, get your mind off that stuff, and then go up and kill it and come back. Some little simple exercises right here. Some of these you've probably heard of, maybe most of them. If you can bend over and stretch that lower part of your back, that's something that doesn't get stretched very much. It'll feel good. Breathe in your nose and out of your mouth again. Standard kind of thing. Pick an unrelated thing to do physically. Well, that touches on the thing I said about TS, where he said, I'm going to tell you about comic books. Progressive muscle relaxation is a great way to get rid of acute symptoms of fear. So you start with your toes and you tense them, you let them go. Start with the muscles in your feet, you tense them, and you let them go. Each one not as fast as I'm doing it now, but over the course of several minutes. And squeezing something like a ball in your hand in rhythm. I'm not a big fan of that because I think it just tends to focus your stress as opposed to dispel your stress, but nevertheless, it's there. You know the audience's secret. They want you to succeed. If you have something to tell them that you've worried a lot more about than how you're going to say it, that's great. Organize it, prepare it, silo it. Talk about it in terms they haven't thought about before. Make sure that your opening gives them something they actually want to continue to hear. And go up there and kill it and sit down. If you like these kind of tips and would like more, if you'll send an email to that address, I'll put you on my weekly writing tips list, and you'll get that for the low cost of nothing.
It's good. Everybody do it.
And that's what I have for you. Thank you. Good night.